So just when you thought you were going to get to go pretty stuck with that. But it'll get us done a little bit earlier than we did. So I'm Shane Cannon, group leader for technology innovation in the computational sciences program. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about our semi file system that we're spinning up, our Spider, and about some of the, it's going to be rely heavily on the values, so a little bit about that, but also talk about other plans. So here's an outline, briefly give an overview of Spider and the network that it's going to support it called China. Give a status report on the project. Sorry. Oh, just really there we go. Talk a little bit about storage evaluation that we've been doing over the past 6 months or so, and an update on the router status based on the Spider and the network. And again, sort of like the previous speaker did with what we see as risk, what our concerns are, and some of the things we're doing for this. And if there's time, maybe a few other points about some of the things we're doing. So, as I was saying, Spiders are center-wide file system. It's going to be mounted by all the major systems within the center. And this, just like we said before, this helps women as we sort of balance the there's plenty of upside potential there. And then to help support it is the scalable IO network, which is called Zion. It provides a backbone for the to connect the data to the computation system, and still is scalable and can grow out as we need. So this is just a diagram to sort of describe it and talk a little bit about. Also shows both some current systems and Baker is the Teleflex system, which I'll describe a little bit later, that we're going to be deploying this year. So in ours, unlike what Livermore's doing currently, we're going to start pretty much off the bat. We're innovating this back-end network, the bridge between the systems. But a lot of it, other than that, it's got a very similar characteristics to what Livermore and other sites in the instructions. So not alone. Maybe we're a little more aggressive on the scale of it, just a little bit sooner than some of the others. So we'll be up front for a short. So we've already belabored this too much because I think it's pretty important for them all describe some of these things. But there's a lot of advantages. One, it's easier on the users because they don't have to move data between the different systems. The other is, in fact, decoupling the file system from the computational system, which is the way that we traditionally done it at Oak Ridge. It opens up a lot of things. One is we have scheduled maintenances on the code systems, and during that time, the data is inaccessible. So this would be nice for users to continue accessing them. We can evolve the storage on its own trajectory and grow it as we need to. So we're not doing it lockstep with computational systems. It also gives us a lot of flexibility in the hardware to make sure we're not limited to the kind of nodes that maybe basic works today. We can pick ones that we think will do the best job what we're trying to do for our host. And then it makes it easier for us to put in our own local packages and inside customization that we're interested in. Doesn't have to go necessarily through all of that plays testing cycle, or we don't have to do that with industry. It integrates some features. Okay. And then the other thing that's pretty obvious is it allows us to leverage this investment bandwidth. This bandwidth we all know is extremely expensive. And the last thing we want to do is have to open up the systems. And it also provides continuity between systems, which we can do well. So today what we have is we do have a small system that's in pseudo production state. It's not fully rolled out to users, but it's available. The users can use it if they wanted to. We haven't advertised it. It's small. It's only 5 gigabytes per second. About 600 gigabytes of space. So it's kind of capacity heavy versus bandwidth. This was just to get something out there that can provide some system evolution that we're going through right now. And right now we have it mounted up on several resources. The main system, Jaguar, and then cluster, the analysis cluster, and the development system. We've also been testing the router specifically going from a portals to an InfiniBand. This is slightly different from what Livermore was describing earlier, with from a lot of different networks, TCP, so for us, it's the OPEC. We have seen several issues as we've scaled this up. A lot of it has to do with the particular configuration that we've been running with which is somewhat, it's very congested. We only have 4, maybe 6 routers supporting several thousand computers. So it's a pretty strange kind of configuration at this point, but it's sort of what we can easily do. But it's good because it's exposed a lot of some of the weaknesses within the routing code, and it's giving us a chance to go through and fix those without a lot of pressure on it. There's also still some timeout issues that we have to work through, but I think we've got a good idea of where those issues lie and what we're going to do. These were all the tests that we've been doing today have mainly been on PCI-based routers, but we do have one PCIe riser. Just to explain, on tray nodes, there are service nodes in the system. They have a riser on the up until now, there's about PCI-based trays and processing PCIe-based. So this is good for us because we're going to pretty much limited by that bandwidth of the InfiniBand interface that we can put in. Today we tested this and we get the kind of data rates that we expect from PCI-based part. About 200 megabytes per second for sort of low-level argument testing. Through the router, through the LNET router, we're getting about 1 megabyte per second, which is in line with what we were scoping to. Maybe I was hoping we'd have a little more headroom there so that we wouldn't have to rely on that. The other good thing is it's easy to add bandwidth by adding routers. That's an issue. Hopefully we'll do it. The other thing I wanted to talk about was a bake-off that we did. We've been planning the file system right now. I'll be describing a few slides for a year and a half, 2 years now. And we've been working closely with the storage vendor community to let them understand what our requirements are and understand what their roadmaps are like and trying to line things up. So the way we went forward with this is we, after surveying the market, we picked 2 vendors that we felt were the most likely to be a good fit for the system we deployed. And we looked at their next generation hardware. So we got 9900s from GD1, XPD2s from Alcatel. And we actually got these very early on, long before they were GA. And I think in the XPD2 case, we got it before even a lot of the tier 1 vendors had access, which is very early on. And likewise for the 9900, I think we were one of the first customer ships for that. So the vendors have been really good at working with us. And because we got them early, we expected to see issues, and we did. But we've been slowly working through those. It's been a good process. We've been looking at these on several criteria: performance, reliability, robustness, and also just physically, working with power, floor space. To do the performance of that, I've got a couple of slides here just showing some of the performance measurements we've got from the systems. To do these measurements, we used XDD. These were all pretty much low-level performance measurements, not Lustre level. Those from you with Lustre out that normally that's done with STPDD. In this case, we've been using XDD because we needed to have concurrently multiple hosts in the controller so we could see what the aggregate throughput of the controller itself is. And XDD already has mechanisms helping to do that. We've also found as we've gone through that later on that STPD measurements that we actually aren't able to get the full bandwidth starting to see some limitations of SGPDB itself because it uses the SG interface and not sort of direct it's not using sort of some of the native Wi-Fi interfaces. So we've been working through that with Sun. This is just sort of a recent observation. We both hero configurations, which were sort of like what's the absolute best thing we can get out of these controllers, as well as what we termed operational configurations where we had, I guess it's not just a page, but it's black, it must be something else. So for these we had things like parity check on read turned on with the most data reliability. And depending on the system, we try to keep things consistent, but look at cache mirroring and data coherence. Basically, one of the things configured for it, we have multi-path running. So I'm not going to report all the numbers we measured. I just wanted to show a snippet of them so people could see sort of how the measurements look. If you're interested in more, you can check it out. But a few slides. I've got the hero numbers that I'm showing here. And you can see we do various configurations. So we do one node test with a single one, and we sort of slowly scale it out. And as you get towards the far right side there, you've got 4 hosts sort of hitting all of the available lines. So it should show what's the maximum kind of it's the same. You can also see by looking at the curve sort of where the saturation comes from. So for DDN and hero mode, we're seeing about 5,500 megabytes per second for read, sequential read. We also measure random, but I won't show the detailed cost of those. And then for writes, we were seeing about somewhere around that as well. And then what?
Pardon me, is that per single 90 megabyte?
Correct. Yeah. And in this case, this was, it had 30 tiers on it, but I think we only tested up to 20 there, so we can set it. And then for, likewise for LSI, we got their read performance in terms of from 6 gigabytes per second and around 4 gigabytes per sequential write. And here we need Q.1. There's one artifact in the benchmark, which is XDD that's sort of, it's sequential but not perfectly sequential because there's multiple threads running. And so you can get in scenarios where like, sort of switch back and forth, and that did fall some performance numbers. And it's not clear that a file system would really do that. So we, I think for this one, we keep that. This is a quick summary that shows all the data. As I mentioned, we did both hero mode and operational mode, and then we did both sequential and random. So this is a summary of it. I would like to point out that the random write for DDN may be we're still working with them on that. It may not be quite that high, but so they're probably a little more equivalent than this particular plot shows. Otherwise, I think the data is pretty solid. At the same time, these are still systems pretty early in their life cycle, and they're still doing both things, actively working on the systems and continue to make improvements. So this is really just a snapshot of how much looks like. We've already been working with LSI, they've been working with Mellanox, and they've identified some issues with how, because we did all of this over in InfiniBand, that's what so this was, we're kind of pushing the envelope a little bit here. And LSI specifically saw some issues with how the Mellanox chip, the Linux PCIe bus and the specific bus size transfer units. So we've been working with Milcom and regarding some improvement in that. I can't remember if the plot that I showed was with that in my we also saw some cases where DDN's random performance fell off after a certain number, and we've got some ideas of what's going on there. And one observation, which I think is pretty well understood within the Lustre community, is that prefetch on DDN oftentimes is not really a good thing. It still seems to be the case. And as I mentioned, there's an issue with cache on the disk that we think might be accounting for some of the maybe too high random write. Okay, so that's sort of what we've been working on for the last 6 months or so. Now I wanted to turn your attention to what we're moving towards. So Oak Ridge is going to be deploying a peak teleport system this year. It's going to be a gray system within both, which is evolved over time. It's going to be similar to sort of current day technology. We're actually going to start taking chips towards the end of the fiscal year. And these are sort of the stats. I think some of the critical things to point out is this target of 200 plus gigabytes per second at this span rate, and which is driven to match sort of the amount of memory in the system, 223 kilobytes. So we've been trying to preserve that ratio if we can't preserve all the other sort of aspects of that ratio. So the file system will be Lustre based. In fact, our plan is basically the scratch file system for Baker will be started. So therefore, we need to make sure that it can meet the specs. It will be, the Baker system will be C-star forward code. So that's good. We've already got all the code in place to be able to run configurations like this. So that's maybe not solved at the scale, but at least it's understood. And it will rely heavily on that as well. So these are the general stats that we're scoping for. We're trying to get a 140 gigabytes per second per OSS, which we think is actually pretty reasonable. Probably do better than that, but this works out well with the general configuration for the storage. So we have 194 of those. 6 to 7 OSTs per OSS, which is a little on the high side. We prefer that to be lower, but right now there's still the 8 terabyte limit on the XT3, so somewhat constrained there. And then routers will be matched to the number of OSSs, so 192, same kind of stats, 140 gigabytes per second. And then for the MDS, clearly on the roadmap talked earlier, we're not going to have cluster metadata, so we're just looking for ways to make sure that the MDS we've got is as big as bad as we can make it. So we'll be using fat nodes with as good a storage as we can put on the back end to maximize this performance. We've looked at things like solid state capabilities and things like that, but we didn't use the huge thing from the code as I think this matches with what I was doing. Not, there are things that I'm more concerned about. It'd be a nice to have, both from scalability and from the reliability standpoint. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, am I worried about not having a customer? So, not particularly. There are other aspects that I'm worried about.
What kind of MDSs are you using? Like just one Opteron fat or the active?
No, they'll probably be more like quad Opteron. Our HPC ops team is pushing hard to move away from standard white box and really more towards something that has. So we're looking at things like Dell or something that has at least some level of monitoring and call outs when you kind of fall somewhere like that. So, for example, we've got an R900 in Dell that we've got This is just to give you an idea of the speeds and feeds for the other systems within the center that we're looking at. So Jaguar says 60 there. That's our current Ray XT system. That'll probably be maybe 60, maybe 30, just depends on what we think is necessary. But definitely from the Baker side, we're targeting 240. And then Lens, the visualization system, taps directly into the same InfiniBand network. So it will have basically the bandwidth will be driven by the number of nodes and the other aspects of the technology, which I'll show later on. And then it also shows some of the other systems in the center. So just a few words about the status of the network. We do already have something deployed today. It's a few 280 courses distributed physically within the the center because it spans multiple floors. It's a mix of DDR and SDR at this point. And as I mentioned, we're still using PCI for language on the XT, so that's a bandwidth manager right now. And we've already pretty much picked out the hardware that we're going to use for the build out to support the full process. So we're in the process of getting that now. This is just another diagram of it that shows a little more detail. It even shows just the lengths of cables that we'll need to go between the different systems, because this is physically spread out and can't use copper cables. So we've been working a lot with it, so we can to evaluate the at the core of it, the pointer is going to be these three 288 port InfiniBand switches. Both the storage and the routers will go directly into that network. And that'll all be physically fairly close, as you can see, everything's within 30 or 50 meters of those switches. And then we'll bridge that into a few other systems, including Jaguar, and up to a different InfiniBand switch that's upstairs with analysis systems and some of the other support systems. So that's just a brief spider. So just wanted to finish with talking a little bit about, I talked about some advantages. So what are some of the clearly, the good thing is now spiders are the center of everything, back from the center of everything. So kind of single point of failure for the center. So that certainly is a risk. And we're, like Livermore said, now we'll probably have break things up across different sets of OSSs so that we have some at least some portions that should stay operational. Kind of see dealing with version skew between platforms is an issue, especially when we're dealing with the main vendors. We've got to integrate with the spray, so they have their own timeline for their Lustre, so that lots of sense is an issue. But we're working with spray on how to get it done. One that we haven't mentioned a few times today, but I think is still a looming issue, especially in the shared file systems, is quality of service and making sure that an analysis cluster that maybe is not really your bread and butter, it's not what you really care about, and all of a sudden it just hammers things in such a way that your simulation cycle and all of a sudden just like zero. That seems like a bad thing. So we need to make some strides in that area, and just general router congestion. So what keeps me up at night, especially as I think this stuff. So obviously the scale of it, just the number of clients, the number of threads that are going to be banging in this system, the number of OSSs. Basically every dimension is kind of a little bit on the scary side. Stability and resiliency, how does, we've already heard a lot about timeouts today. You get in big systems like this and timeouts become a serious problem. Congestion, which are the two slides talking about this, at all levels, routers and network, both sides, both InfiniBand and C-Star, and within the OSSs themselves. And data integrity is always in the background. Those things are fun to worry about. So, what are we doing about it? Well, it'd be great to say we've got it all licked, but we don't. But I think that we try to go through and identify things and try to come up with at least a box of tools that we can apply to problems to get stuck into. So I think the good thing is there's a lot of work that's already been done that we can bring to bear on some of these problems. So things like, we put a lot about today already, so things like adaptive timeouts, the network cluster, these can help in some of these scenarios. We think there's still some need for some improved routing, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Ping changes, especially with the number of OSTs for LSS, we've seen issues. We've heard of issues with that. Improvements in LNET timeouts. These are all things that we talked with someone about. Another one is just improvements in the middleware layers themselves. And so, Wayne D will be talking about some of the work he's been doing for the Lustre Center of Excellence, so that's good. So one of the things we've been given a lot of thought about recently is network congestion. And so the way we've been focused mainly on the internet side. I think on the C-star side, we expect congestion there, but we already have a similar configuration with the Java system today. We know it's not horrible, it's a problem because it stops cold. And looking at the InfiniBand side, the way to think about it is you get endpoint congestion, and it starts to back up the network. And eventually, you start, maybe there's no congestion on the servers over here, and there is over here, and it eventually backs up into the tree and keeps traffic from being able to flow to the side. So there's some ways that we can deal with that. And this is just describing that. What we can do is try to pair communication in such a way that you stay within a crossbar switch in the internet network. So we've been looking at if you do that, you could do that just by creating a bunch of O2IB Lustre networks and splitting everything up. But it would be kind of ugly, to say the least. And then it also creates a problem with other systems that maybe don't have routers defined for all these different networks. So one thing we've thought about looking at is adding some more intelligence within the router layer so that you could, for a given client, who needs to talk to a specific OSS or OST, he would have a preferred router that he would go to for that communication. And that preferred router would keep it within a line. And then you don't get any, you stay within the crossbar of the switch chip and you don't get any congestion. So this is one example of something that maybe can help with some of the congestion. And I've taken it a step further. If we're still worried about congestion with the C-star pattern, we could go an additional step and say that there's not just a set of routers that are preferred to keep it on a switch chip, but maybe there's even a preferred one that's locally close to the client within the C-star network, within the field system. So this means strategically, today in an XT, they typically just put all the out nodes in one cabinet. So maybe we're looking at scenarios where maybe we distribute them throughout the mesh more uniformly. And then the tricky part there is now you have to calculate out and place these for each client. So that gets a little, there's certainly a administrative headache that you have to overcome. But you know, it may be that this is what's needed to really make the process more effective. So yeah, I just wanted to make. I'll make it quicker. One of the things that we've been looking at is also, and this was mentioned in the previous talk, I was talking about the lack of tools to work with these file systems. So one of the things we've been looking at is you take something like CP, CAR, GZIP. These are serial-based tools that a user typically runs from a node. He goes as fast as that node goes, and it goes no faster. So something that they created in a 5-minute checkpoint file may take them hours to copy their system. So we've been looking at creating parallelized versions of some of these common utilities to allow you to distribute the load across multiple clients and leverage the parallelism of the file system. So we started with CP and have a basically working implementation of that. This parallels is not just by clients, not just by individual files, but on an individual file, if it's large, on multiple threads. So if you had one big file that you need, 100 terabyte file, then you can still get some good parallels. And then we're also looking at it for other utilities like ones that we've thought about already, compression, decompression, which can be tricky. And also CAR is another one that I think we can use. So these are other things that we're going to have to do down the road. So we're working on a framework that will make it easy to implement these kind of things as well. So that's it. Any questions? Okay, so Spider is the parallel file system. Scion is the network that's going to support it. It's the one that's going to connect all the different systems. We need LNET routers within to make Spider work. And then Spider is a real system. The question was, just what was the different parts of